The first text came at 6:47 a.m., Barbados time, then another at 6:52. By 7:15, my phone was buzzing like an angry wasp trapped in a jar. 43 missed calls, 67 unread messages, and my family's collective panic bleeding through the digital void. But I was 3,000 miles away, watching the sunrise paint the Caribbean sky in shades of gold and coral, sipping my second mimosa of the day. My name is Camden Riley Thornfield. I'm 32 years old, a forensic accountant by trade, and apparently, according to my twin sister Scarlett, emotionally unavailable and incapable of putting family first. That last part came from her mouth exactly 47 days ago, the day she decided I wasn't worthy of standing beside her on the most important day of her life. Before we go any further, welcome back to Revenge Stories with Kyle. And if this is your first time watching any of our videos, we encourage you to hit that subscribe button. Your support means the world to us, and it motivates us to continue creating even more powerful stories for you. So stick with us to the very end. And if this story moves you, drop your comments and share with a friend. Now, let's dive back in. You see, I have this philosophy about betrayal. It's like carbon monoxide, odorless, colorless, and by the time you realize what's happening, the damage is already done. The difference is, I've always had excellent ventilation. Growing up as twins, people expected us to be two halves of the same whole. Scarlett and Camden, Camden and Scarlett. Our names rolled off tongues like a practiced melody. We shared everything. Birthdays, bedrooms, and that peculiar twin telepathy everyone insisted we must possess. The truth was messier. We were more like two mirrors facing each other, creating an infinite reflection where it became impossible to tell where one ended and the other began. I was the practical one, the problem solver, the one who balanced our joint checking account and remembered to pay the electric bill. Scarlett was the dreamer, the charmer, the one who could convince anyone of anything with nothing but a smile and the right tilt of her head. For 29 years, this dynamic worked. I was her safety net, and she was my excuse to take risks. When she wanted to backpack through Europe after college, I liquidated my savings account to fund the trip, then spent 3 months coordinating her itinerary from my studio apartment in Chicago. When she decided to pursue acting in Los Angeles, I co-signed her lease, paid her health insurance, and listened to her cry through 17 failed auditions via FaceTime. When she met Bradley Ashworth III, yes, the third, complete with trust fund and an attitude that suggested the world owed him something, I bit my tongue through 2 years of watching him treat my sister like an accessory to his lifestyle. The kind of man who ordered wine by price point rather than preference, who called women females in casual conversation, and who somehow made, "Babe, you're being dramatic," sound like terms of endearment. But Scarlett was happy. Or at least she performed happiness with the same conviction she brought to community theater auditions. So I smiled, played nice, and even helped plan the surprise proposal that Bradley orchestrated at the country club where his father was a member. I hired the photographer, coordinated with the restaurant staff, and watched through a window as my twin sister said yes to a man who had to Google how to propose 3 days earlier. The betrayal didn't come all at once. It was a slow bleed, a series of small cuts that individually seemed insignificant. First, it was the engagement party. "Camden, we're keeping it small and intimate," she told me over lunch at that overpriced salad place she loved. "Just Bradley's family and a few close friends." I found out through Instagram that small and intimate meant 87 people, including her college roommate who she'd spoken to exactly twice in the past 5 years. Then came the bridal shower. Oh, Camden, you know how Bradley's mother is about these traditional things. She's already planned everything with her friends from the country club. You understand? I understood that I wasn't invited to my own bridal shower while women who couldn't pick Scarlett out of a lineup were sipping champagne and opening gifts I'd helped pick out. But the real knife came during what I thought was going to be the bridesmaid selection. Scarlett invited me to that same overpriced salad place, ordered her usual kale and quinoa monstrosity, and spent 20 minutes talking about everything except why we were there. Camden finally said, pushing lettuce around her bowl like she was solving a puzzle, "I need to talk to you about the wedding." I remember feeling relieved. Finally, we were going to discuss my role, the dress, the planning. I'd already researched photographers, venues, and caterers. I had a Pinterest board titled Scarlett's Perfect Day that I'd been curating for 3 months. "Bradley thinks," she started, then stopped herself. "I've decided to ask Madison to be my maid of honor." Madison, her friend from yoga class who'd known her exactly 8 months and whose idea of deep conversation was rating their instructor's leggings. "Okay," I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice sounded. "What about bridesmaid, I assume?" That's the thing. She was looking everywhere but at me now, her eyes focused on something fascinating happening in the parking lot behind my head. Bradley's family has very specific ideas about weddings. Traditional, and with all his sisters and cousins, there just isn't room. There wasn't room for me in my twin sister's wedding. I don't understand, though part of me absolutely did. Scarlett's face crumpled slightly, but whether from genuine emotion or practiced dramatics, I couldn't tell anymore. "You have to understand, Camden, this isn't just about me. It's about starting a marriage, building a relationship with his family. Bradley's mother already thinks I'm too," she gestured vaguely at herself, "too dramatic, too emotional. Having you there would just remind everyone that I come with complications." Complications. That's what I was. Not a sister, not a best friend, not the person who literally held her hair back through food poisoning and heartbreak in that disastrous blue hair phase of 2018. I was a complication. Have you ever been made to feel like you were too much trouble for the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally? That moment when you realize you've been giving everything to someone who sees you as nothing more than an inconvenience? Drop a comment below if this hits too close to home, and hit that subscribe button now. "Besides," she continued, gaining confidence as she built her case, "you don't even like weddings. Remember what you said about Kelly's ceremony last year? All that money for one day, how it's just a performance?" She wasn't wrong. I had said that. But I'd also said I'd crawl through glass for her happiness, and somehow she had managed to forget that part. "Right," I said, standing up so abruptly that my chair scraped against the floor. "So congratulations on your uncomplicated wedding." That night, I did something I hadn't done since we were children, fighting over the same toy. I truly looked at my sister as a separate person, not as an extension of myself. What I saw wasn't pretty. Scarlett had always been selfish, but it was the kind of charming selfishness that came wrapped in vulnerability and good intentions. She wasn't cruel. She was thoughtless. She didn't consider other people's feelings because she was too busy managing her own. But this felt different. This felt calculated. Over the next few weeks, I watched from the outside as wedding preparations continued without me. Social media became a special kind of torture. Scarlett posted everything. Dress shopping with Bradley's sisters, venue tastings with the girls, none of whom I recognized, registry creation parties where she opened wine and laughed with people who would disappear from her life the moment the marriage hit its first rough patch. The worst part? She kept texting me. Not about the wedding, of course, but about everything else. Her car making a weird noise. Could I call my mechanic? Her credit card getting declined. Could I check if there were any issues with our joint account? Bradley being distant. Did I think she should be worried? She wanted me functional enough to solve her problems, but invisible enough not to complicate her new life.
I was being demoted from sister to personal assistant. This is the moment everything changed for me. When I realized I wasn't her sister anymore. I was just her unpaid employee. If you've ever felt like someone's backup plan while they lived their main character life, smash that like button now and subscribe. You deserve better than being someone's convenient option. Let me know your stories in the comments. The plan came to me 3 weeks before the wedding, sitting in my office at 2 a.m., reviewing financial records for a divorce case. It was elegant in its simplicity, and it required something I'd always been good at: preparation and perfect timing. See, there was something Scarlett didn't know, something she'd never bothered to ask about in all her self-absorbed wedding planning. That joint checking account she occasionally used, the one I'd opened when we were 25 to help her build credit, it required both signatures for any withdrawal over $5,000. And the savings account I'd liquidated for her Europe trip, I'd eventually convinced her to contribute to a shared emergency fund, which meant she'd been making deposits for years into an account where I controlled the terms. But the real revelation came when I decided to actually read the contracts she'd been forwarding me to check for anything weird. Scarlett had a habit of signing first and reading later, which is how she'd managed to book a wedding venue, caterer, photographer, and florist, all with payment schedules that required final payment exactly 1 week before the wedding. $37,000. Due in full, 7 days before she walked down the aisle. She'd been counting on our emergency fund to cover the final payments, the same emergency fund she'd never mentioned to Bradley, because admitting she needed her sister's money would complicate the narrative of her financial independence. I spent those 3 weeks doing what I do best, building an airtight case. I documented every slight, every dismissal, every moment she'd treated me like an ATM rather than a sister. I screenshotted text messages, saved voicemails, and created a timeline that would make any prosecutor proud. But more importantly, I planned my exit strategy. The Wednesday before her Saturday wedding, I submitted a vacation request for the following week. Personal time, I told my boss. Family situation that requires me to be out of town. Thursday, I visited our bank and restructured our accounts. Perfectly legal, completely within my rights, and absolutely devastating to anyone depending on access to funds that Friday. Friday morning, while Scarlett was presumably getting a manicure and finalizing seating charts, I was boarding a plane to Barbados. I'd booked a resort that specialized in digital detox, no cell service in the rooms, limited Wi-Fi in common areas, and absolutely no obligation to participate in the outside world. I turned off my phone as the plane taxied down the runway. The thing about revenge is that it's most satisfying when you don't have to watch it happen. I didn't need to see Scarlett discover that the accounts were frozen. I didn't need to witness her calling vendors who demanded immediate payment or default on their contracts. I didn't need to be there when Bradley's family realized that the woman their son was marrying came with exactly the kind of financial drama they'd tried so hard to avoid. I just needed to be somewhere beautiful, with excellent room service and a clear conscience. The first few days in paradise were exactly what I'd hoped for. I read 3 novels, learned to paddleboard, and discovered that I genuinely enjoyed my own company when it wasn't constantly interrupted by other people's emergencies. But by Thursday, which should have been 2 days after the wedding that wasn't, my digital detox was officially over. 43 missed calls, 67 unread messages, voicemails that started apologetic and escalated to frantic, text messages that began with, "Camden, please call me," and devolved into, "Where the hell are you?" But my mother's voicemail told the real story. "Camden, honey, I don't know what happened between you and Scarlett, but she's devastated. The wedding, there were problems with the vendors. Everything fell apart Friday morning. Scarlett's locked herself in her apartment. Bradley's family is furious, and frankly, I don't understand any of it. She keeps crying about accounts being frozen and how you were supposed to help her. Please, just call me back. My father's message was more direct. Camden, your sister needs you. Whatever this is, fix it. Family comes first. And then there was Scarlett's final message, recorded at 3:17 a.m. on what should have been her wedding night. I know you're getting these. I know you can hear me. I don't understand what I did wrong, Camden. I thought you'd always be there to catch me. That's who we are. That's who we've always been. Please come home. Please help me fix this. I can't do this alone. I listened to that message 3 times, sitting on my hotel balcony with the Caribbean stretching endlessly in front of me. And for the first time since all this began, I felt something crack inside my chest. Not regret, exactly. Not even guilt, but something sadder and more complicated. The recognition that some bridges, once burned, can never be rebuilt to their original specifications. I called my mother first. Camden? Oh, thank God. Where are you? Barbados, I said simply. Barbados? What are you doing in Barbados? Taking a vacation, a very necessary vacation. There was a long pause. Honey, Scarlett's wedding was supposed to be... I know when her wedding was supposed to be. I also know why it wasn't. The money issues were entirely avoidable if she'd included me in the planning instead of treating me like a complication to be managed. Camden, she's your twin sister. Yes, I said, watching a pelican dive for fish in the crystal clear water below. And for 32 years, I've organized my entire life around that fact. I've been her backup plan, her safety net, her personal problem solver. I've sacrificed relationships, opportunities, and my own peace of mind to make sure Scarlett never had to face the consequences of her choices. But that's what family does. No, Mom. That's what codependent people do. Family supports each other. They don't use each other. I could hear my mother crying softly on the other end of the line. She didn't mean to hurt you, she finally said. I know she didn't. That's what makes it worse. She hurt me because she literally never considered my feelings important enough to think about. I wasn't worth including in her wedding, but I was worth accessing my bank account to pay for it. What do you want me to tell her? I thought about that question for a long time. What did I want her to tell the sister who shared a womb with me, who'd been the other half of my identity for more than 30 decades? Tell her that I hope she figures out how to build a life that doesn't require other people to sacrifice theirs. Tell her that I love her, but I'm done being her emergency contact for problems she creates. And the money? The money was always mine, Mom. I shared it because I wanted to. But wanting to and being obligated to are different things.
I didn't call Scarlett directly. There would be time for that conversation later, when we both had some distance and perspective, when she'd learned to see me as a separate person instead of an extension of herself. Instead, I extended my stay in Barbados by another week. People often ask me if I regret it, if I feel guilty about ruining my sister's wedding, about not being there when my family needed me most. The answer is complicated. Do I regret that Scarlett's wedding turned into a disaster? Yes, I never wanted her to be hurt or humiliated. Do I regret that Bradley showed his true colors when financial pressure revealed the kind of man he really was? Not even a little bit. A man who abandons his fiancée during a crisis isn't someone you want in your family anyway. Do I regret finally setting boundaries with someone who'd been taking advantage of my love for years? Absolutely not. The thing about revenge is that it's not really about hurting the other person. It's about refusing to let them hurt you anymore. It's about creating consequences for behavior that never had consequences before. Scarlett learned some valuable lessons that weekend. She learned that actions have costs. She learned that other people's generosity has limits. She learned that being charming and vulnerable isn't enough if you're not also considerate and reciprocal. Most importantly, she learned that I'm not just her twin sister. I'm a separate person with my own needs, feelings, and boundaries. We're speaking now, 6 months later, not often and not about anything too deep, but we're speaking. She's in therapy, which I think is helping. She's also single, which I definitely think is helping. She's never apologized for excluding me from her wedding, but she's also never asked me to help solve problems that are entirely of her own making. Progress, I suppose. As for me, I've learned that I actually enjoy my own company. I've started dating someone who doesn't know anything about my complicated family dynamics, and I've discovered that relationships are much healthier when they're not built on a foundation of guilt and obligation. I keep a photo from that Barbados trip on my desk at work. It's just me, standing on the beach at sunset, looking directly at the camera with an expression I'd never seen on my own face before. Completely, genuinely at peace. Sometimes people ask me about my twin sister, expecting stories of that mystical connection everyone assumes we must share. I tell them the truth, that loving someone and enabling them are different things, that you can care about someone without sacrificing yourself on the altar of their poor decisions, and that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is let them fail without rushing in to save them. Scarlett thought she had the last laugh when she decided I wasn't important enough to include in her wedding. She thought she could use my love and financial resources without offering any respect or consideration in return. She was wrong. The real last laugh? I didn't have to destroy her wedding. I just had to stop propping it up. Sometimes the most devastating revenge is simply stepping back and letting people experience the natural consequences of their choices. And sometimes the best part of revenge is discovering that you don't actually need the person who betrayed you, that you're not half of something broken. You're a whole person who deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. These days, when people ask me about forgiveness, I tell them it's not about forgetting what happened or pretending it didn't hurt. It's about accepting that some people aren't capable of being what you need them to be and loving them anyway, from a safe distance. Scarlett is still my twin sister. She always will be. But she's no longer the center of my universe, and I'm no longer the gravitational force holding her chaotic life together. And honestly, we're both better for it. The wedding that wasn't became the beginning of the life that finally could be. Mine. If you loved and enjoyed this story, do not forget to hit that subscribe button, like this video, and share it. Until our next update, take care.